Welcome to the Chronicles of Lost Relations. On that Monday morning, we found ourselves gathered around the kitchen table, having just wrapped up our breakfast. I was enjoying my coffee and perusing the newspaper when my wife interjected, "Chad, could you please set the newspaper aside? I would like to have a conversation with you." I placed the paper on the table, and she went on, "I'm leaving you, Chad. I am seeking a divorce." "Is that everything?" I inquired, retrieving the newspaper and turning to the sports section. "I mean it, Chad." She was adamant. I turned a blind eye to her, which only deepened her distress. "Curse it, Chad. Set aside that newspaper and engage with me on this topic. All I can express is farewell. It hardly feels like a significant loss. Your contributions as a partner have been lacking for quite some time, so it's best if you leave." I set the newspaper aside, rose to my feet, and made my way to the home office. I took a notebook and pen from my desk, retrieved an envelope from a drawer, and made my way back to the kitchen table. I inscribed on the first page of the notebook, "Tyrone. Gratitude fills my heart, and I am truly thankful. She is departing from my life." Just as I was ready to slip the note into the envelope, a thought struck me. I retrieved a lottery ticket I had purchased the previous night and placed it into the envelope. Then I penned, "Perhaps if fortune smiles upon you and you emerge victorious, it will suffice to appease the deceivers, ensuring she refrains from cheating once more. Wishing you all the best, young one. You will find it essential." I have signed it. Chad, filled with gratitude, carefully folded the sheet, placed it in the envelope, sealed it with intention, addressed it neatly, and handed it to Kathy. "When you encounter him, hand him this." She accepted it, disbelief etched across her features. "Your assumption of my ignorance doesn't define my reality." "Maybe," I said, taking back the envelope from her. "Perhaps I ought to send it myself? I have my doubts about your ability to resist the temptation to open it, read it, and discard it afterward. Why don't you take a moment to gather your belongings and leave my life behind? Given your departure, it's essential that you vacate the premises at your earliest convenience. I'm here to stay. I refuse to leave, just to make space for your partner." I rose from my seat, filled a travel mug with coffee, added a little extra, and set off for work. During my journey, I made a stop at the bank, where I closed our savings and checking accounts and cleared out our safe deposit box. Subsequently, I visited a bank nearer to my workplace and established new accounts solely in my name. Subsequently, I reached out to cancel all our joint credit cards and made arrangements for new cards to be issued solely in my name. Following that, I concentrated on my daily responsibilities. I lingered at the office after hours, enjoyed dinner and drinks with my executive assistant, and casually brought up that I was available again if her sister still had an interest. Maria chuckled and declared, "Forget about my sister. If you find yourself single once more, I hope to be at the front of the queue." Maria began her journey with me as a secretary a decade ago, demonstrating such exceptional value that I elevated her to my assistant 4 years back and, subsequently, to my executive assistant 2 years ago. One Sunday, I hosted a backyard barbecue and extended an invitation to Maria, but she had to turn it down as her sister was in town for a visit. I proposed that she invite her sister to join us. Tara was an alluring blonde with a captivating figure, and on Monday, Maria chuckled as she shared that Tara had developed a crush on me. I laughed and replied, "Just don't bring it up to Kathy." At times, her jealousy can reach astonishing levels. Maria was expressing her interest in me, and I had never considered that she might feel that way. "Okay, I joked. Then Tara shifts to second place, and you can claim first." "I assure you, I'm completely serious, boss. I am absolutely serious. I'm eager to take a shot at it." "Maria, you may find it hard to see eye to eye with my proposal." "What do you mean by that?" "She has decided to pursue a divorce, so I'm stepping back and allowing her and her partner to navigate this situation. I'm completely in the dark about what their schedule could look like. Her beloved? She had a brief encounter with him around a year and a half back, and it seems she's come to the conclusion that spending just a few days a week together isn't satisfying anymore. So she's opting for a full-time commitment? For how long have you been aware?" 1.5 years. I had a sense of it right from the very beginning. What led to that occurrence? A friend of mine spotted her entering a motel room with a man and reached out to inform me. I engaged a private investigator to track her movements for a week, and he provided me with all the details I required. After a year and a half, you still haven't taken any action on it? What was I meant to do? Become furious and completely disrupt my existence? In this jurisdiction, divorce is granted without assigning blame. All assets would need to be divided, and I would have to sell the house, sharing the profits with her. I'd have to relinquish the pool, the hot tub, my woodworking shop, and the 3-car garage, and transition into an apartment. Thank you, but I'll pass. I chose to overlook it and allow her to prepare meals for me, handle my laundry, and maintain the cleanliness of the house. How could you stand to be near her, fully aware that she was being unfaithful to you? It's astonishing how swiftly affection can morph into animosity, and then that animosity fades into apathy. It's hard to fathom that someone as vibrant as you could go such a long stretch without intimacy. Who mentioned anything about abstaining from intimacy? While Kathy was extending her hand, I was eagerly accepting. The frequency did diminish to some extent, however. I refrained from any contact on the days I was aware she was with him. Aside from that, the sole alteration was that I ceased making love and simply engaged in sex. Can you think of any reasons behind her actions? I have no clue, but he likely wasn't the original. Do you believe she was involved with anyone else? While I can't say with absolute certainty, I can recall that during our decade of marriage, she experienced a particular mood on 4 occasions, at least as far as my memory serves me. For a period, she behaved as she had for the past year and a half since becoming involved with this man. I can only speculate, but I would wager that the previous instances were likely for the same reason. If she had gone unnoticed, and I hadn't been informed, I would have dismissed her recent mood as just another one of those typical experiences women have. Perhaps my thoughts are misguided, but ultimately, it holds little significance. I am certain about this situation, and that's all the insight I require to recognize her unfaithfulness. What will your next move be? Hold on. What are we waiting for? To observe her intentions moving forward. Now she stands alone. I cleared the bank accounts, terminated all her credit cards, and instructed her to leave the house. She expressed her desire for a divorce, so I chose to let her make the decision. Given her insufficient income to sustain herself and afford legal representation, she will need to seek financial assistance from her partner for a lawyer, though it's uncertain whether he will provide it. I can only speculate that they had a conversation about this prior to her bringing it up, but I have no means of confirming that. What I'm saying is, if your feelings for me are genuine, then you'll find yourself entangled with a married man who is uncertain about the timeline for his divorce. Chad, I believe you're approaching this from the wrong angle. In what way? If she initiates the divorce proceedings, she will hold the reins, you'll receive the papers, and that might lead to unfavorable outcomes. One can only imagine the possibilities of her actions. They may instruct you to vacate the premises and transfer it to her while awaiting the hearings. What happens if she decides to file for mental and physical cruelty and secures a restraining order that prevents you from being near her in the house? It's essential to establish the rhythm, leader. It's essential to take control of the situation. Inspire her response, rather than waiting for her to initiate. Moreover, your assistance will be greatly appreciated. Assisting you? In what way? What happens if you choose to wait for her to file, and she never does? What happens if her partner withholds the funds for it? That might place us in a scenario of infidelity, and she could leverage that against you later on. She claims she was unfaithful, and her response is simply, what of it? You also did. By filing, you are expressing that, in your view, the marriage has concluded, and your subsequent actions are not her concern. From a legal standpoint, your marital status remains intact until the divorce is finalized, and being with me could still be viewed as adultery. However, it's unlikely that any court would penalize you for it. If it doesn't commence until after you've initiated divorce proceedings with Kathy, it appears I should keep my distance from you until either you or she pursues legal measures. Waiting for her might stretch on for years, or perhaps it will only be a week. Yet it would remain within her grasp. By filing, you might have the opportunity to consult with a lawyer first thing tomorrow and deliver the papers to Kathy by Thursday. That would allow me the weekend to focus on charming you, captivating my interest. I'm absolutely serious, boss. What's the use of being at the front of the line if I don't make the most of it? She was correct, and I was aware of it. I reached for my cell phone and quickly dialed Alex's number. Alex and I had been friends since third grade, and he worked as a lawyer specializing in family law, a more genteel way of referring to divorce law. Upon his response, I conveyed my need for his legal expertise and detailed my circumstances. He conveyed his condolences, as he and his wife, Sally, were our friends, and he had a fondness for Kathy. He promised me he would handle it first thing in the morning when he arrived at his office. He invited me to stop by during lunchtime to sign the papers, and afterward, we could enjoy a meal together. Then, just to be difficult, I mentioned that I wanted a restraining order. I fabricated a story, claiming that Kathy warned me that if I gave her any grief for leaving me, her partner, Tyrone, would take care of me. Alex chuckled, acknowledging the absurdity of it all, yet he remained committed to going through with it. Are you aware that a hearing regarding this order is scheduled to take place within the next 10 days? I can obtain it and present it. However, a hearing must take place before the judge can issue an order for it to remain in effect. I understand, and I'm ready for it. At this moment, the priority is to ensure she leaves the house and remains away for some time. Since we don't have children, she lacks a significant reason to utilize the house during the divorce proceedings. I adhere to the belief that ownership is largely about having it in your grasp. A judge has no justification to remove me and allow her entry. That's the goal I'm striving to achieve. This morning, I asked her to leave, but I'm uncertain about what awaits me when I return home. She could have left, or perhaps she remains. Given the uncertainty of her location, I intend to deliver the service at her workplace. Is there any possibility that you both might reach an understanding? None. I'll catch you tomorrow, then. I ended the call, glanced over at Maria, and inquired, "What do you have in store for me this weekend?" She presented her ideas, and they resonated well with me. Upon arriving home, I found Kathy seated at the kitchen table, sifting through a stack of papers. "What brings you to this place?" I inquired, making my way to the fridge and retrieving a beer. "This is my home as well. I will remain here until I can organize alternative plans. If my company isn't to your liking, you're welcome to leave at any time." "Absolutely not. Take a seat, and let's talk about our plans moving forward. There is no room for discussion. I have my own intentions, and your plans are of no concern to me. There are matters that require resolution." Chad. "Absolutely not, Kathy. No questions of that nature exist. It's straightforward. You mentioned wanting a divorce, so go ahead and pursue it. It is essential to engage a legal professional, submit the necessary documentation, and ensure all associated court expenses are addressed. I will battle you fiercely for every single detail. In our state, fault is not a factor. Everything is divided evenly, so choices will need to be made regarding the allocation of items in this situation. I intend to prolong this process to ensure your legal expenses continue to accumulate. It's important to recognize that they expect compensation for their efforts, don't you think? Are you interested in the coffee table? Well, would you believe it? I desire it as well. Are you interested in the couch? That's unfortunate, Kathy. This item holds immense sentimental significance for me, and I absolutely need to possess it. What's the sudden change about? It appears that this didn't matter to you previously. You didn't express any feelings at all when I mentioned my desire for a divorce. You simply instructed me to gather my belongings and leave. That was prior to the moment I had the chance to reflect on it. I gazed into her eyes and embraced the uncertainty. I gave you past the first 3 times since you were against the idea of a divorce. I cared for you deeply, choosing silence and loyalty, knowing you would always return to my side. She averted her gaze when I brought up the initial 3 instances, which, to my understanding, validated my doubts. I find it difficult to articulate the reasons behind my decision to remain by your side. I have not initiated divorce proceedings. I wondered if perhaps I had done something to upset you, leading you to feel the need to respond in this way. In the end, you would conclude your entanglements, and I naively believed it was due to your newfound understanding of your feelings for me, leading you back to my side. I glanced at the ground and observed the clutter on my footwear. I initially believed this situation with Tyrone was merely a repetition of past experiences, but I now realize I was mistaken. I've realized that you're merely a deceitful trickster. If you hadn't chosen to walk away from me for Tyrone and ended things with him, you'd likely be in the same situation with another fool in 6 months or a year. Upon reflection, it became clear to me that I required a measure of retribution. What I truly desired was to wield a heavy belt and strike you until your skin tore and blood stained the ground, but that would inevitably lead to my imprisonment. The sole option available to me, without risking incarceration, was to ensure this divorce became as challenging and costly as I could manage for you. Indeed, you are correct. This space belongs to you as well, and if you've chosen to remain, I must allow your presence. However, I'm not obligated to embrace it, nor am I required to engage in conversation with you. Relocate your belongings to one of the extra bedrooms, and please keep your distance from me. I polished off my beer and ascended to what was once our bedroom to prepare for the night ahead. I believed I had achieved my intended goals. I had provided her with a thought-provoking idea. She had to engage in a thorough conversation with Tyrone and come to conclusions, a process that would require some time. The time Alex would dedicate to serving Kathy and obtaining the restraining order. It's possible that I might not be correct. Perhaps Kathy had already consulted with a lawyer and the documents were en route to me. It seems probable that I had collected the leftover funds upon canceling the credit cards, and the amount was roughly what I anticipated when I withdrew the cash from the bank. Had she consulted a lawyer, she would have utilized our funds to compensate him. Naturally, Tyrone had the means to take care of the bill. I found myself in a position of waiting, holding on to the hope that Alex would initiate the next move. I rose and departed the house before Kathy emerged from her bedroom. I visited a charming bed and breakfast cafe for my morning meal, and as I enjoyed my coffee, I took the time to jot down a list of people to contact once Kathy had been served. I refused to be cast as the villain in her narrative. I would share the details of the divorce and clarify the reasons behind it. During our time at work, Maria expressed her excitement for the upcoming weekend, and I couldn't help but share in her anticipation. I had lunch with Alex and finalized the paperwork. He mentioned that he would go to the county building after lunch to submit the petition. Do you still wish for her to be served at work? Absolutely, I certainly do. I believe it will be around 10 tomorrow. Reach out to me the moment it occurs. I need to have the locks changed before she returns home. I went back to work and scheduled the day off for the following day. Before departing the office, I contacted a locksmith and arranged for a swift service the next day. It required a little extra investment, yet I believed it was justified. Upon arriving home, I noticed Kathy's car parked in the driveway. It seemed she had chosen to remain in her room, avoiding any interaction, as I didn't catch a glimpse of her. I departed the house prior to her descending the stairs and made my way to a charming bed and breakfast cafe for my morning meal. Nina inquired about Kathy's whereabouts. I used to see you both all the time, and now it's been 2 days in a row without her by your side. We will no longer be seen together. We are parting ways. Text, I understand, she remarked, noting down my order. As she set the bill down on the table, she remarked, my phone number is on the back, not the restaurant's but mine. Nina's departure left me utterly speechless. In the span of 2 days, 2 women had expressed their interest. What was it about me that fell short for the woman I chose to marry? I would remain unaware, as I would never inquire. I sipped my coffee and perused the morning newspaper, biding my time until Kathy typically departed for work. After that, I returned home and began the process of packing up Kathy's belongings, transferring them to the garage. At 10:15, Alex reached out to inform me that the papers had been delivered. I contacted the locksmith, and in just 20 minutes, he was diligently at work. Less than an hour had passed when Kathy's car raced up the driveway. She couldn't overlook the expansive garage door and the prominent cardboard sign that declared, Kathy, all your belongings are waiting for you in the garage. She lingered before the sign for a moment, then attempted to enter the house, but naturally, her keys refused to cooperate. She pressed the doorbell, yet I chose not to respond, and in time, she departed. I glanced into the garage and noticed she had gathered a few bags of her belongings. Just 2 minutes after she pulled away, my phone buzzed to life, and it was Kathy on the line. "Hello, you're being quite rude. Was it truly necessary to put me in such an awkward position in front of my colleagues? It's preferable to avoiding the embarrassment of being humiliated in front of my people. What on earth is this nonsense about a restraining order? I was concerned you might ask Tyrone to confront me for my rudeness towards you, and you're aware of that. I must enter the house to collect a few items. Your belongings are all stored in the garage, Kathy. The garage door code remains unchanged, so your opener will still function perfectly. If you can't find what you need, please create a list and let me know where it is, and I'll relocate it to the garage for you. Cease with the absurdity, Chad. This is unnecessarily complicated. Kathy? I apologize, Kathy, but the inconvenience I'm causing you doesn't truly compensate for the years of torment I endured. I must take this step for my own mental well-being. Consider yourself fortunate that I maintain my composure. Farewell." Once I ended the call with Kathy, I took a seat with the phone and began dialing each person on my list. Many were taken aback by the revelation that Kathy had been unfaithful, yet 2 individuals remained unfazed. One remarked, "At last, we've got her, right?" And the other commented, "I always believed you had a non-traditional marriage. She was constantly seen with different guys, and you never brought it up." I decided it was time to remove those 2 from my circle of friends. Kathy's parents were deeply impacted by the news and insisted that I must be mistaken. I always appreciated them, and they regarded me almost as the son they never had, but I wasn't about to allow Kathy to present her narrative and portray it as if it were entirely my fault. If I allowed that to occur, they would form a negative opinion of me, and I was determined to avoid that. Once I finished handling the calls, I took another stroll through the house to collect Kathy's belongings, and then I prepared myself some lunch. Just as I wrapped up my meal, the team from Aries Security showed up, their skepticism palpable. They seemed utterly convinced that Kathy would disregard the restraining order and attempt to force her way into the house. After Kathy's actions, I made the choice to install a security system, complete with cameras. On Thursday at the office, I informed Maria that we were all set for the weekend ahead. Her smile radiated excitement. "Tomorrow evening, we'll kick things off with dinner and dancing," she remarked, matching my smile. Upon arriving home, Kathy acted precisely as I anticipated. She gathered a few of her belongings and then stealthily entered the house through the adjoining door from the garage. The kitchen resembled a chaotic scene. Shards of plates and glasses littered the floor, while in the living room, multiple lamps lay shattered. What brought a smile to my face was watching her empty my closet, tossing my clothes onto the floor, and then proceeding to pee on them. This was all documented, revealing not just her breach of the restraining order, but also her malicious and destructive behavior. This served as proof I could present at the hearing for the restraining order. I reached out to Alex, and he got in touch with the authorities. They showed up, gathered information, and captured some images. The following day, Kathy found herself apprehended at her workplace and subsequently transported to jail. She underwent fingerprinting and photography before being presented to a judge, facing charges for breaching the restraining order and intentionally damaging private property. To my astonishment, the judge scheduled a hearing date and allowed Kathy to be released on her own recognizance. Amidst the chaos, my outing with Maria turned out to be enjoyable, and we've arranged a second rendezvous for Saturday. That also went smoothly, and on Sunday, we relished a delightful picnic together. A hearing for the restraining order took place on Monday. Upon viewing the security camera footage, the judge not only rendered the restraining order permanent, but also mandated that I replace all the items that were destroyed, pay for the dry cleaning of my clothes, and cover the expenses for cleaning the bedroom. He allowed her a span of 10 days to comply, warning that failure to do so would result in jail time for contempt of court. In a rather mischievous spirit, I decided to enlist the services of the priciest cleaning company available for the task. To my dismay, Kathy successfully obtained the funds to fulfill all the judge's directives. I never witnessed Kathy being imprisoned for contempt of court. As the next fortnight unfolded, Maria and I found ourselves in each other's company frequently, Yet our interactions remained limited to a handful of kisses, occasionally charged with intensity, due to the discomfort stemming from my status as a married man. Yet, we were gradually nearing the moment when matters were becoming significant. The divorce was uncontested and reached its conclusion within 6 months. The divorce unfolded as a typical no-fault case, with all assets divided fairly. I refinanced the house and acquired Kathy's share. I had been quietly setting aside funds in a separate account for an unexpected journey around the globe to mark our anniversary, and since she was unaware of it, I refrained from giving her any money. She was completely unaware of the final 2 certificates of deposit I had secured in the safe, purchased with my most recent bonus checks. I achieved yet another minor triumph. Kathy received alimony for a duration of 2 years, or until she entered into another marriage, but it was determined to be only $100 per week, rather than the $500 she had sought. This came as a surprise, and Alex mentioned it was due to our fortunate alignment with the judges assigned to my cases. The judge who oversaw the restraining order hearing and the one in charge of the divorce were not just cousins who seemingly exchanged thoughts on their cases. They also shared a common experience of having unfaithful wives in their pasts. Both judges were convinced that a wronged husband should not face consequences for his wife's betrayal. Though they complied with the law, they did not exceed the necessary requirements. Kathy's relationship with Tyrone evidently left much to be desired, as 7 months post-divorce, she found herself back at her parents' home. 8 months after my divorce, I found myself at a bar in the Hilton, savoring a beer and a steak sandwich for lunch. At that moment, someone settled onto the stool beside me and inquired, "May I buy you a beer?" I glanced over to catch sight of my ex-wife's previous partner. Intrigued, I encouraged him to proceed. He gestured to Agnes and requested a couple of beers for us. Once she had delivered them, he lifted his glass for a sip, then placed it down, gazing at it thoughtfully as he started to remove the label from the bottle. A modest collection of label fragments gathered before him prior to his words. "I didn't intend to mess things up for you," he said, his gaze still averted. The evening I encountered her, she had no wedding rings on, leaving me completely unaware of her marital status. Her behavior certainly didn't reflect that of a married woman. She found herself at Bud's bar, surrounded by a lively group of her co-workers. When I approached her to ask for a dance, she readily accepted. After I got her a drink, she welcomed me to join her and the other girls at their table. We twirled together 3 more times, and when I mustered the courage to ask her out, she said yes. I swiftly became enamored with her, and in just a month, we found ourselves intimate whenever the opportunity arose. At first, we found ourselves relying on motels because I was sharing my space with 2 roommates, and one of them was constantly present. We were unable to visit her home as she mentioned living with her disabled mother, which also clarified why our meetings were infrequent. She mentioned that her outings were contingent upon someone being available to care for her mom. Eventually, I secured my own apartment, freeing us from the need to depend on motels any longer. Despite the inconsistency of our meetings, my heart was captivated by her, and I was preparing to take the next step and propose. I planned to purchase a home spacious enough for the 2 of us and her mother. Just as I was about to ask the big question, someone I knew interjected, questioning why I was involved with someone who had cheated. I was prepared to face him when he disclosed that Kathy was married and had a past filled with infidelity. It was revealed that she had been unfaithful with his brother 2 years earlier, and when her husband discovered the truth, he decided to end their relationship. Initially, I struggled to accept it, but then your letter arrived. I held on to my thoughts for a week before finally addressing her, and she crumbled into tears. She asserted that her feelings for you were non-existent, depicting you as a violent alcoholic who physically assaulted her and inflicted emotional distress. She claimed to despise you, yet she was too scared to walk away, as you allegedly threatened to find her and harm her and anyone in her company. At that moment, I had uncovered the truth and recognized her deceit, which completely extinguished any consideration of marrying her. Despite everything, she was quite skilled in the bedroom, and after you had sent her away, I allowed her to stay with me, but only under the condition that she would share my bed. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until the divorce was finalized, and then she started bringing up the topic of marriage. That was the moment I brought it to a close. My parents separated due to my mom's infidelity with my dad. He gained custody of me, and she eventually remarried, only to be discovered cheating on her second husband. She entered in her third marriage and betrayed once more. I hold a strong conviction about the adage that once someone betrays trust, they are likely to do so again. Therefore, I communicated to Kathy that as long as she was comfortable with a casual arrangement, we could proceed, but nothing beyond that. Approximately 3 weeks later, I returned home from work only to discover that she had vanished. He took another sip of his beer and remarked that there were whispers suggesting I had been aware of our affair all along. He inquired why I didn't end the marriage right away. I simply shrugged and responded, "You said it yourself." She was exceptionally skilled in the bedroom. I chose to embrace the situation, relishing the intimacy and appreciating the presence of someone to handle the cooking, cleaning, and laundry. I might have continued in that situation if she hadn't brought up the idea of leaving and seeking a divorce. He took another sip and remarked, "I never imagined I'd express this, particularly to you, but I miss having her beside me at night." He drained his beer, rose to his feet, retrieved an item from his pocket, set it on the counter, and nudged it in my direction. "What is this all about? The lottery ticket you provided?" I inquired, taken aback. "This one stands out as a true champion. This is your portion." He presented me with a cashier's check for a considerable sum, an exceptionally large sum. "I held on to it for you, so you wouldn't need to share it with her during the divorce. Catch you later." In an instant, he was gone. Upon my return to the office, Jan, my assistant, glanced at me and remarked, "You resemble the cat that just devoured the canary." Was lunch truly that exceptional? A smile graced my lips. The lunch experience was remarkable. "Oh, right," Jan said, recalling Maria doesn't work for you anymore, does she? Currently out of the office. She's at home, transforming the room that will soon welcome the twins into a cozy nursery. Greetings, dear audience. We invite you to express your opinions in the comment section below. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected.